We are working on stage 5, working with HDR images. Now, the human eye is extremely sensitive to subtle changes in light. We can perceive detail in light areas, we can see detail in dark areas. Cameras are not that good, okay? If you look at most photographs, they're going to have sharp detail in either the highlights, in the midtones, or in the shadows. It's going to depend on what exposures were set. And what happens with a high dynamic range image is that you take multiple photographs with different exposures. Some exposures will enhance detail in the highlights, some in the shadows, some in the midtones, and we combine those to give us a more dynamic image. With nothing open yet in Photoshop, you're going to go up to File, you're going to select Automate and Merge to HDR Pro. In the Merge to HDR Pro dialog box, you're going to select Folder and hit Browse so you can select the museum folder that is in your WIP MOAH folder. Say OK to that, and then make sure that the attempt to automatically align source images is checked. Yes, these are all like the same thing, but they were taken in the same position, but there could have been camera jiggle, there could have been somebody standing there, in which case everything doesn't line up 100%, so it's not like on a tripod necessarily. So we do want to try to have the computer do the alignment for us and say OK. So now you can see that you have multiple images opening up and all kinds of craziness is happening, and here's the dialog box. There are 5 images. If you don't see the histogram, you're going to need to go into the mode and change it to 32 bits to bring the histogram up. Check the Remove Ghosts option on the right side of the dialog box. So this way, if an image has movement, like the vehicle is going by, the merging of the individual exposures can cause some really bizarre blurring. And so when you remove the ghosts, the software will use one of the exposures, whichever one is highlighted in green down here, and that's going to define the details in the area of motion, like where this car is. So we could change the key just by selecting something else, and here there is no vehicle, or like this one, and you can see the ghost in there. Now in the mode menu, choose 8-bit. 32-bit images store a lot of information, and that will give far more detail than we would see in a conventional 8-bit photograph. But one significant disadvantage of these images is that they can't be separated for commercial printing. So if you're going to use an HDR image in a print application, you have to apply tone mapping to define how the high dynamic range is going to be compressed into a low dynamic range. So on this one, we're going to do the 8-bit and leave the secondary dialog box with local adaptation. That's going to allow you to change the values for a number of specific options, and those will map the tones in the HDR image. Then that will take it to a lower dynamic range. Open the preset menu now and choose Surrealistic. We've got a bunch of standard settings, and there's several variations that are monochromatic, photorealistic, surrealistic. Each preset is going to change the values of that local adaptation sliders to create the desired effect. And you can create your own presets by clicking the buttons on the right of the preset menu and choosing Save Preset in the resulting menu. You can experiment with these sliders. So we can mess around with the glow, the strength, the gamma, change the exposure, how much detail you want. You can work with the shadows, the highlights, the vibrance, and the saturation as well. Once you are happy with what you have, and you're going to make the decisions on this, say OK to finalize it, and then save the file in your folder as Museum Merged. And let's see what that comes out to. I think that's a pretty large file. So yeah, we're looking at almost 11 megs here. So if you would go into image size, change that from the 300 pixels back down to a 100 pixel per inch file. You're going to take that down to a 1.2 meg file. Say OK to that. Do another save, and then that will be what you'll turn in, and you're done with the chapter.